Welcome, Bob Mirman, and it is great to have some time with you on the Inside Edge. And Bob,
Thank you,
I
Jim.
want to give a quick introduction for those who are watching. The gentleman that I'm speaking with has been a friend for the entire career on my side. He has one or two more years on me, but that's about it. And we are fortunate enough at Zonda to have brought in Bob Mirman and his team to be part of the Zonda team. We're going to explore that today. And the other thing is that Bob's got a unique perspective about customer service, about referrals, and the biggest word we want you to take away from today is trust. So here's how we'll start. Bob, you have a fascinating background that led you into home building and the customer experience. But let's start from the beginning. How did you get here?
Well, I started off as a psychologist. My whole grad school career and undergrad was basically in the field of psychology. I wanted to be a clinical psychologist, ended up doing that for a few years, working in mental hospitals and clinics in Michigan, because I went to Western Michigan University for a while for my master's and spent a lot of time in hospitals. Loved it then, but after a while, in terms of clinical settings, I really didn't feel like I was that great of a clinical psychologist. I took too much of my work home with me. It was very difficult for me to do it. And luckily, I had a colleague that kind of pushed me into the business sector. And I started doing consulting for businesses from a psychological perspective. I was a specialist in behavior modification. So we worked in textile areas. I worked for General Mills for a couple of years as a consultant. And then I got a call from a guy named Fran Tarkenton who started a company, a consulting company with behavioral modification as the guideline. And we were a group of psychologists that would go out all over the country and work with his clients. And that worked out so well. And General Mills then offered me a full-time job. So I started working there and I was there for 7 years working on my specialty was motivational programs for their 1,000 person sales team. How do you motivate salespeople to do a job that they've been doing for so many years? How do you renew their energy? How do you motivate them to start selling in ways they've never tried before and try new things and compete with other salespeople? So we had a great program. And that led me to start doing surveys of not home builders at that point, but doing surveys of the buyers at Kroger's and Safeway and Albertsons to evaluate the sales team. That's how I got started in the survey business.
Bob, was
So it
that
was
National
good.
Survey Systems at the time?
No, that was still General Mills. And then from that, I took that skill that we learned at General Mills and I left General Mills in 1984 and started National Survey Systems. I moved to California. I moved out of Minneapolis, away from the mosquitoes and the cold, to a warm environment in Southern California and started National Survey Systems. And that's how that part started. Then the rest came when I got a call from Dana Kovac, who was then working for Shea Homes, and she invited me to come in and talk to John Shea Jr., and that's where everything started.
And that evolved into Alliant. Alliant is what is now joined into Zonda. And
Right.
speaking of a warm environment, we are thrilled you are here because
Thank you. Yeah.
what, and Bob, what I want to go into is that you really do have a unique perspective about the customer, but more importantly, how we, and I say we from the home building standpoint, how we interact with the customer. And if you would, I've heard you use the term passionate advocate. Would you dive into what that means and just the evolution of what that is?
I'd be happy to. I mean, that's it's a recent it's a recent selection of that term to describe what we're after because Eliant in its basic form was a research company, but now over the last 20-25 years, we've really evolved into a consulting company for our home builder clients to not only talk to their customers and then transmit that energy and that information back to the home builder, but to show them how to use that information. Because it's not what you find out from these surveys, it's how you use it. And that's been the reason why we've been around for 40 years. That's a differentiation between us and JD Power and the rest of our competitors is that our guideline is to help them improve the customer experience to the level that customers are willing to then go out and refer their friends and their colleagues and their relatives back to that builder. So we want the original concept was to turn those home buyers into advocates for the builder. And then I realized when we started doing focus groups of these advocates, there's a big difference between just getting a home buyer to refer when asked. Would you refer your builder to a friend? Yes, I would do that. The difference is when they go out and proactively bring their friends in and refer you, that has to be based on some kind of level of passion. A
So
passionate a passionate advocate is someone who'll go out there and drag their friends in proactively without being asked.
pause on that for a second. There's an important takeaway because, you and I have both been involved in some level of market research for decades.
Yeah.
And there's the information you find, the data, the ultimate info that is actionable, but how you respond to it. And I think you said what you do with it is the key. This is the single most important thing. And what I also heard is it's while you're still in business because you're able to take the data to an action plan. And stay on the referral thing because you often talk about the value of a referral. Explore that with us.
Yeah, the issue about referrals, it's nice to get referrals. And by the way, our clients average about 24% of sales from referrals, which is phenomenal considering that the NAHB came out a few years ago and said the average sales from referral rate across the country is estimated about 8 to 10%. And where our clients are averaging 24%. 1 out of 4 homes based on referral. But it's more than just the fact they're getting referrals. There are so many value points. People who are referred are more likely to buy. They're more likely to make a purchase decision sooner. This is based on the research. Sooner. They're less likely to can. And they're more likely to refer friends once they get to you as a client. So they're valuable beyond just the fact that you're getting referral sales because they're going to score better on your surveys. They like your quality better. They will refer more often than non-referred buyers. And that's the research that we've done. We've taken all the non-referred buyers and the referred buyers in 2 separate sets. And we looked at their scores in all of our surveys. And we just redid this about a month ago. Beth Bloom in our office did that. And we found out that the scores on the surveys that are completed by referred buyers are higher significantly than the ones that are sent back to us from non-referred buyers. So there's a real longevity in terms of the value of these referred buyers. And
Bob,
that's what we're talking about.
I've also heard you say that customer satisfaction is not the goal. I think that was literally a quote I heard you say. How can that be? Don't we want to satisfy our customers?
Well, listen, customer satisfaction, satisfied customers are better than dissatisfied customers. No one's going to argue that point. But in terms of really the end game is not to just generate happy customers. We want customers who are absolutely delighted. That's the difference between an advocate as a customer and a passionate advocate. That passionate advocate will go out and bring their friends into your office. They'll go out proactively and talk about you. That's what we're after. And to do that, our research is very clear. There are 7 behaviors that staff needs to participate in. And I've written extensively about this on all of our articles and our blogs and stuff on LinkedIn. You can find the Passionate Advocate series. But the most important thing, Tim, that we have to really pay attention to as a builder is the communication of status of the home itself and of the loan. Listen, I don't care how much experience you have as a buyer. You've bought many homes in your past. You're moving from an entry-level buyer to a mid-range buyer to a move-up buyer to a luxury. Regardless of the amount of experience that you have as a buyer, you're always anxious about some part of this. Maybe you haven't bought a home in 5 years. You bought one, but it's 5 years. Everything has changed. It's about keeping them up to date because they're anxious about what's going on. So the number one driver of referral likelihood is keeping your buyer informed. And that's the nature of the business that we do in Eliant is to let our builders know about that.
So, Bob, we started with the word trust, and that's one
Yeah,
of the things that you are passionately advocating for
right.
everyone that you work with. I've known you long enough that I know that. But the trust element does come as a human being from communication. The more you speak to someone, the more time you spend with them, you get to know them. And that's where trust comes from. And that makes total sense to me. The more you get information, the more updates you get, the
Yeah.
more our relationship is built and confidence is built. And as you said, being the anxiety of worrying goes down. I appreciate that.
Our job, our job, when I say our, I mean the home builder's job, lender's job, is to reduce anxiety in their customers because an anxious customer will never refer a friend. Why would they want to bring a friend into a situation in which there was stress and anxiety?
I
So,
don't.
and the bottom line on reducing anxiety is to be transparent and to be communicative in a proactive nature, not to just wait for the customer to ask questions, but to proactively communicate status of both construction and loan. Those are the two areas over which the buyer has the most anxiety. So if we can reduce the anxiety by communication, which is the number one positive thing we can do, we're going to gain referrals to an extent that was heretofore unreachable. So it's a major deal.
Bob, let me take you further into the customer satisfaction exploration. And I'm
Sure.
going to boil it down to PPC. And I'm thinking about ops performance. There's our first P. The
Yeah.
second is the promise and what we're supposed to do with the promise. And the third, where the C comes in, is customer service. Let's break that down briefly. Start with the ops performance. What should builders be thinking about with that?
Well, we've done research with the University of Southern California Marshall School of Business. We do regression studies on all of our questions. We have about 50 questions on our move-in survey, fewer on the customer service survey, of course, but almost 70% response on those surveys, by the way. So even though we have that many questions, the questionnaires are designed to get a high response. So we know that all these questions that are on the survey have to relate to the one important question. The key question on our evaluations is how likely are you to refer a friend back to this builder? And then we take the University of Southern California, took every question on the survey and did a regression analysis to figure out which questions on the survey have the biggest impact on the willingness to refer. That's the performance part. We're talking about staff behaviors. And we found that there are 7 behaviors that affect performance and affect the willingness to refer. So when we talk about operational efficiency, that's what we're talking about, getting better on those 7 behaviors. There's 1 in sales, there's 2 in customer service, there's 2 in construction, there's 1 in finance. I mean, we have them all narrowed down per department, and that's the performance that we're trying to improve in our builders.
Then number 2 is the promise. And when I first heard you talk about this, I was taken aback initially, but the word that stuck with me based on your conversations is realism. So dive into the promise. Tell us about that.
And we make promises, hundreds of promises as human beings. We make promises all the time. Don't worry, be there. Honey, I'll be there in 5 minutes. Go ahead. We make informal promises and we also make formal promises. It's both of those that in the sales and the construction from superintendents and the design center, all these people that are interacting with our buyers are making both inferred and real promises, hard promises. The biggest promise that we make is to the first important question that a buyer has at contract. When will I be able to move my family into my new home? That's the biggest promise of all. And to that, we have to be realistic. To every promise, realism is the key word. If we're trying to develop trust, because trusting buyers will go out and refer to us, trust is based on the differential between what you say you're going to do and what you actually do. And if you do less than what you promised, you're not developing trust. You have to always beat the promise that you're making to generate higher levels of trust. Not just meet it, because that goes back to what you were saying earlier, Tim, that's just satisfaction. We don't need no satisfaction, as I said in that presentation. What we need is delight. We need delighted customers who are passionate. To get that, we have to exceed. This is our promise. We have to exceed it consistently by sales and superintendents and lenders and design consultants. They all have to make promises that are realistic, that they can beat. That's the goal on every promise. You never make a promise that you don't intend to beat. It's a structured process.
You intend to beat, not to keep, to
Yes.
beat.
Right.
Key takeaway.
Right.
Now take us home with this last point. And the last point has to do with the customer service. It's the C in what I just mentioned. And something I've
Yeah.
pulled from listening to you over the years is the old reliability. Help us with that.
Most of the referrals that builders get come from homeowners, not from home buyers. Once a buyer becomes a homeowner, the only thing that's important at that point is the service that that buyer is able to receive. And that's where the referrals come in. You don't get referrals because you have great quality. You qualify for earning the referral because you have great quality. But since every buyer expects great quality, when you do what you expect, you promise this and you give this high quality homes, that's a definition of a satisfied buyer. We don't need no satisfaction, as we talked about earlier. So we need to exceed that. So the buying process, the quality thing is just to get you to the point where you can earn the referral. Where you earn the referral is in the way you provide service, the way you respond to the buyer's questions and the homeowner's questions, but mostly the way you provide service after the sale, because there are very few buyers who don't require contact by customer service. It's universal. So how do you do that? It's not the quality of the home, it's the manner in which you deliver the home. And the delivery of the home is part of the reason for customer service. It's part of that delivery process. It doesn't go away once they sign the contract and once they move into the home. So customer service earns you referrals because your buyer can then evaluate whether or not you're doing what you say you're going to do. So customer service is for me, it's a profit center. It should be a profit center. It's not a necessity. It's a profit center. You're going to make profit because you're going to earn referrals and the dollars that come from those referral sales by providing an over-the-top customer service experience, by being proactive, by only making promises you can beat, by showing up on time, by having your customer service guys walk in with booties and tools that are designed for what they have to do. They know ahead of time what their
We're
job
here
is,
to help.
even if it's trades. Yeah, even if it's trades, you got to make sure your trades are held accountable. That's why it's important to call random buyers to find out what they thought about the service. Did your guy come in on time? Did they have a drop cloth? Did they clean up after themselves? Those are all the key behaviors, and that's why we can earn referrals during that customer service process. It's key.
So, Bob, we touched upon being a passionate advocate, not just satisfaction, but a passionate advocate. You're exploring the value of a referral, and I think you've hit that home very clearly because those are so closely tied. And then the element of the customer service and satisfaction being a difference between what's promised and what's delivered.
Right.
Put that together in a neat box, and with decades of experience in the customer satisfaction world, or over satisfaction, the customer delight experience.
Yeah, there you go.
Give us a lesson learned. Give us perhaps the most important thing that you take away from every interaction that you have with builders.
Okay, let's summarize that. First of all, one, never make a promise without planning to beat the promise. The only promises you make are the ones that you should beat. Pay attention. Number two, pay attention to being proactive in terms of communication. Buyers do not expect that. They would love to have it, but they don't expect it. So when you do it, you're exceeding their expectations immediately, and you're reducing their anxiety. Number three, pay attention to customer service as if it's your lifeline to generating a reputation in your marketplace. It's reputation management is absolutely key to builders that succeed over time. And to get that, you have to exceed customers' expectations and you have to bring your customers into your sales team. They should become unpaid members of your sales team. And the way you do that is to make promises you plan to beat and to keep those promises at least, if not beat them, and to focus on the service that you provide and be proactive on your communication. I mean, you can narrow it down to those three things, and it makes a huge difference, particularly if you take a look at, from our research standpoint, Tim, if I take a look at the builders that have the highest willingness to refer scores, which is the precedent for actually getting the referral, you have to have those scores high. Those builders do what we just talked about. They train their people to make the right promises, and they pay them a commission, and not a commission, but an incentive bonus based on their scores for that kind of issue on our evaluations. Did your builder do what he or she promised to do? And there should be an impact on that score by representative sales and construction and customer service that are making promises in the right way. So, I've written an 8-page paper on how to use bonuses correctly for home builders, and that's available too.
Beautiful. Now, Alliant is part of Zonda. We, in a very intentional way, brought you and your team in because we're looking at increasing ways for us to support the building community to build great stuff in the right location, interact with the client, sell more quickly, and your team's going to be an integral part of all those processes.
Yeah.
Can we talk yet about the new brand that we will be rolling out that Alliant becomes?
Well, this is a huge thing, and it's not fully in finished its design stage yet. We've been having some great meetings because we just came in November. So from November through February, we've been having meetings continuously to look at how to improve that which we've been doing now for 40 years, because there's always a continuous effort to get better and better. One of the obvious ways and one of the most exciting ways is from the using AI to interpret the information, to summarize it, to get builders pointed at the specific thing they need to do to help them put together a game plan without them having to go through and wade through the data for 2 weeks to figure it out. So that's one of the things. But the whole Trust Builder program that Zonda has been running is going to be expanded by looking at different questions and different ways of presenting things and using AI to interpret Trust Builder, to get more builders involved in Trust Builder, so there's a better database of comparison. So there's a lot of things in the pipeline that are going to be, by the end of the year, they're going to be absolutely extraordinary in terms of opening up the world for Zonda clients.
Well, Bob, it is such a pleasure to talk to you. It was great to see you last week. We love to have you on the team. Many, many decades of friendship. Thank you for sharing your ideas. It is great to be with you. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Tim. Thanks to all the Zonda world. Thank you very much.
Our pleasure, buddy.